リー、あなたは一体何者なんですか?
The show begins abruptly with our lead, Southern Aldarake, aka Sally, coming across a weird rabbit being. Her name is Frau, and she is part of a demi-human community called Hairfolk. Sally befriends her with a carrot, and Frau becomes extremely grateful to her for this kindness. She follows Sally like a personal bodyguard, but the people of the nearby village are hostile towards her, because humans hate demi-humans. Sally decides to cover Frau in a cloak to avoid suspicion. They meet a man selling carrots and stayed at his inn because Frau is hungry. This man tells Sally about a mysterious savior who once took down the town's monsters all by himself. Sally notices the similarities between this savior and a friend she's looking for, Kibutsu Mikoto. The next day, a massive ogre attacks the village, and Sally is weirdly drawn towards it. As her right eye starts to shine in its presence, the ogre is about to attack her, but then Frau comes in and takes it down with a single kick. However, the villagers are still scared of Frau and told the women to leave. On their way, they are taken as prisoners by the Knights of Rimdari, led by Hawthorne Gratter. They are kept in Rimdari's prison for a while, and when Hawthorne reveals that he respects Frau after seeing her defeat the ogre, he treats the girl to a free lunch to compensate for their prison time. Now we meet two ogres, Set and Meki. They are looking for the Peach Boy and decide to attack Rimdari. Set wreaks havoc and Sally gets drawn to him just like before. Frau attacks him to allow Sally to escape with Hawthorne, but Set dominates the fight and is about to kill her. Suddenly, Sally awakens her hidden powers and breaks off his hand effortlessly. Now, Mickey runs into the famed monster slayer Mikoto. He easily overcomes her Shandao with his chi and defeats her in no time. Meanwhile, Seth tries to destroy Sally with his cannon, but it does nothing and she kills him with a single slash of her sword. Mikoto destroys Mickey's horn. This drains her and of her ogre powers. He has a talking dog named Inu, who senses Sally's presence, but he ignores it and carries on his way. Sally has no recollection of the battle and is shocked to learn how easily she killed Seth. Frau and Sally have become local heroes after saving the town, so Frau doesn't have to hide her identity anymore. They are taken to a cell where they find Meki. Hawthorne says she will be executed for attacking Rimdari, but he's holding off on it because he wants to hear her side of the story. He leaves Meki alone with the girls and Frau notices that she's just pretending to sleep. Meki awakens and tries to act tough, but is devastated to learn that she is a human now. She remembers her fight with Mikoto, and this gets Sally interested. They decide to jailbreak Meki and take her away from Rimdari before she is executed. Hawthorne tries to chase after him, but suddenly a cannon beam destroys the entire town, leaving only him and the girls as survivors. Fast forward towards the latter half of the show, where Hawthorne is earning money for the team by defeating warriors in a tournament. However, women get bored and leave because his opponents are weak. Meki has now started to reconsider her opinion on humans after spending more time with the team, especially Frau. Sally spots Mikoto outside and rushes out to meet him. Reveals he's low on cash because he spent it all on a new nun-friend, Sister Milia. She's also fighting in the tournament and used to be an ogre. Now we meet Sumeragi. He is the leader of the ogres and has organized a gathering with all other existing ogres. Here he talks about how the Peach Boy is reducing the org influence in the continent. He offers the solution of peaceful coexistence between humans and ogres, and everyone starts to panic. A high ogre named Todoroki doesn't take him seriously, but then Sumeragi shows him the severed head of another head ogre named Semenki. He also lies by saying that the Peach Boy killed Meki as well, and this makes Todoroki angry because he has a crush on her. Another high ogre named Giuselino offers support, but a mid-ogre suspects Sumeragi's intentions. Later, Giuselino meets Hawthorne in town. Sumeragi also appears and they talked about the ongoing tournament. Juscelino visits the stadium to cheer for Hawthorne during his next fight as a means to win his trust. Meanwhile, Sumeragi tries to become friends with Sally, but then Mikoto interrupts them and warns her against the ogre. Sumeragi tries to persuade Sally to side with him and it creates some conflict for her. Now we are taken to how the show actually begins. It starts off by showing Sally and Mikoto meeting for the first time in her kingdom. Sally is a princess and Mikoto helps her avoid her guards. She takes him on a tour of her kingdom to repay the favor. She spots an octopus and gets scared, so she brings him to her castle for a meal. He tells her some tales about his travels and makes it want her to explore the world. The next day, Sally learns that Mikoto is actually a man, and it shocks her because his physique and voice are very feminine. At the king's court, an ogre named Yaki arrives and issues an ultimatum to him. The king must provide 30 people a month to him as a sacrifice or else he'll kill everyone in the kingdom. However, on his way out, he sees Mikoto and runs away in panic. The king worries for his daughter, so he asks Sally to go wherever she wants. But then, she gets the ogre sensation for the first time and rushes towards the army of ogres outside her castle. She finds Mikoto there and tells him to run away, but he ignores her and effortlessly destroys all the ogres in a matter of minutes. Sally is shocked to see how much he enjoys killing, but he simply leaves it with Inu without saying a word. Sally wants to follow him, but the stink of the dead ogres stops her from doing so. She ultimately decides to abandon her title and explore the world. Her father decides not to get in her way, and this is how she begins her journey and eventually comes across Frau later. Now, we move forward to the time when the team has started to settle in their new hometown. There's some panic because of a vampire named Kety, who is killing women at night. Meki still hates humans and it only gets worse for her when everyone in town starts to judge Frau for her appearance. She tells Sally to kill them all, but she says that she can only use her powers on ogres. Sally and Hawthorne go back to their inn, while Frau and Meki go to get groceries. She decides to meet Kety after hearing the vampire stories. He is actually an ogre too. She tells him about Sally and asks him to kill the human mocking Frau. However, Kety wishes to fight Sally instead. Frau reaches the spot and attacks him, but he's too powerful for her and kills her off quickly. Sally reaches the spot and is devastated to see what he's done to Frau. His power don't work on her, so he traps her by using her clothes. Meki realizes her true loyalties and attack him before he can strike Sally. Frau wakes up in heaven and it turns out that this is the second time she had died this year. She gets revived by an angel named Atla and is sent back to the real world with an added power boost. This new avatar allows her to defeat Kety with one blow, but she passes out right after. Before dying, Kety reminisces about the time when he accidentally killed the woman he loved. The women return home with Frau and put her in bed so that she can recover. Atla visits to withdraw the powers she granted and brings Frau back to her normal form. Meki asks Sally if she was the one who killed Sat, and she confirms it without regret. They meet the same shop owner and he makes fun of Frau again. This angers Sally and she slaps him, after which she orders him not to demean her companions. Kyukety's soul wants to stay for a while so that he can watch his body burn. He meets Atla and tells her that he knows Frau is not a regular hairfolk. She takes him to the afterlife without providing answers. At night, Mikoto and Inu run into Mila and Mikoto notices that she's an ogre. He wants to kill her, but Inu stops him from doing so. He decides to protect her on their way to town, and then they meet the mid-ogre who calls her Hatsuki. This triggers her memory, and we learn that she had faced Sally in a previous encounter. She fights the mid-ogre but is taken down easily. Seeing no other option, she rips out her horn and tells Mikoto that he has to help her now that she's become a human. He scares the mid-ogre away and takes her to the town where he helps her recover. This is how they become friends. Now we're taken back to the moment where Rimdari is destroyed. The cannon was fired by Semenki and he wishes to kill Meki, but Sally intervenes. She challenges Semenki but doesn't know how to activate her powers. He attacks her but is stopped by Sumeragi, who instructs him to leave her alone, otherwise the consequences will be bad. Semenki hesitates at first but eventually leaves. The team decides to head to another town, now that Rimdari is gone. They reach their new home and sort out a room in an inn thanks to Hawthorne's reputation. However, he is still trying to deal with the destruction of his friends and Rimdari. Frau cheers him up and then bonds with Meki for a bit. She decides to give her the nickname Carrot. Sally runs into Mikoto for the first time since they met at her kingdom, and they talk for a bit. Meanwhile, Sumeragi reveals to Semenki that he had ordered him not to attack Sally, otherwise she would have killed him. He also wants to use her for his grand plan. Hawthorne runs into a Rimdari survivor named Barrett. They learn that he was teleported to the forest during the attack on Rimdari. Hawthorne realizes that this is the work of a witch named Winnie, and the team decides to pay her a visit. Then we see Meki meeting Sumeragi. He offers to make her an ogre again if she becomes his spy, and she agrees. Sumeragi is also shown with Mila. He discusses a plan that involves a tree ogre named Juki. She goes for Mikoto but he panics and runs away. She chases after him, but he says they can't work together because she sides with demi-humans. They are interrupted by an attack launched by the ogres Todoroki, Shinki, and Baso. They have also brought a sleeping ogre named Daminki and leave him outside as they start wreaking havoc. The tournament gets cancelled because of the attack, and Hawthorne goes to investigate the matter with a fellow warrior. Todoroki attacks them with lightning and kills Hawthorne's companion. Sally wants to help Hawthorne but is stopped by Sumeragi, who will not let her through. Mikoto comes across Daminki and tries to kill him, but falls asleep once he gets near him. Frau also tries to help her team, but gets attacked by Baso. Hawthorne manages to trick Todoroki into a trap and knocks him out with his wooden sword. Meanwhile, Meki meets Shinki, and he's surprised to see her alive but decides to fight her anyway. Sally tries to hit Sumeragi but is unable to activate her powers and gets punched by him. Todoroki recovers quickly and strikes Hawthorne with a lightning blast, but Winnie drops by to rescue him. Now we're taken to a flashback where we learn that the name Kibutsu Mikoto actually belonged to the original Peach Boy Hiko. He was raised by foster parents after they found him floating on a peach leaf. He sets out to find the parents who abandoned him and befriends Inu on his way. They come across an ogre and Hiko discovers his true powers during their battle. It earns him the name Peach Boy, and he starts killing any ogre that comes his way. He even defeats the leader of the ogres but is warned about the arrival of the Kishin, who will not spare him. Hiko retires to the mountains and renounces his violent lifestyle, but then comes across an ogre who had a child with a human. He accidentally ate his own wife and begs to be killed. Hiko obliges him and sets out to find his child. This child is actually Mikoto, and Hiko saves him from the angry villagers who attack him out of spite. He becomes his guardian and raises him like his own brother. The child doesn't like his ogre name, so Hiko allows him to use the title of Mikoto. Time passes by and the Kishin finally arrive. Hiko defeats them all but is then killed by their leader. Mikoto finds him in his dying moments. Hiko transfers his power to him, enraged by what just happened. Mikoto kills the leader of the Kishin and vows to kill every ogre on the planet after ripping off his own horn. Then we learned that Inu was narrating the story to Milia on their way to the town. Now, we're back to the battle between Hawthorne and Todoroki. Winnie gives Hawthorne a sword named Air that can cut through anything. Hawthorne uses it in his fight against Todoroki and starts to dominate. Meanwhile, Frau uses Atlas power to transform into her dark avatar and kill Baso. She collapses after that. Meki also manages to trick Shinki during their battle and kills him with her Shangdao. Sally challenges Sumeragi even though she cannot access her power, and her spirit convinces him to let her through. He hopes for her to side with him, but she only makes a half promise and leaves. Todoroki tries his best to kill Hawthorne, but the power of air is enough for the human to win against an ogre. Todoroki awakens the next day and is shocked to see Meki still alive. Mikoto wakes up from the nightmare and almost kills Milia, but Inu stops him. Milia was expecting this, as she knows that the Minky's naps usually have that effect on his victims. Winnie spends some time with the team and tells them to head to a country named Legedia. She leaves after that, but promises to check in on them whenever necessary. Sally asks Todoroki to join them, but he asks hostile. After some convincing from Meki, he eventually agrees to coexist with humans separately and leaves. He meets Sumeragi on his way out and is upset over the lies he fed him. However, Sumeragi kills him with a single blow and decides to follow the team to Legedia. Technically, this is where the season should end. Now we go back to the time when the team first meets Winnie after learning about what she did for Barrett. Sally wants to learn magic and Winnie agrees to it. However, they don't have enough money to pay her, so Sally asks Hawthorne to teach her sword fighting instead. Meki uses her Shandao to see Sally's latent magic and is shocked to discover how powerful she really is. We also learned that Frau and Winnie are old friends. Frau uses their friendship to convince Winnie to teach Sally her magic for free and promises to pay her later. In the evening, Winnie tells Hawthorne that Sally can possibly be a devil because she is the only being capable of such power. The next day, an elf and a lizard folk meet the team in the middle of Sally's training. They want Winnie to clear a barrier that has sealed off Juki. Winnie agrees to it, but once they're at the spot, Hawthorne points out that the elf wants to abandon the lizard folk and let them die at Juki's hand. Milia comes out and attacks the team, after which Juki shows up as well. Meanwhile, Sumeragi and Semenki runs into Mikoto. He kills Semenki immediately and shifts his focus towards Sumeragi. The elves and the lizard folk decide to let go of their rivalry and fight Juki together. Juki captures Sally and tells her that there can never be peace between humans and ogres. She tries to talk peacefully, but the ogres start to constrict around her. Back to Mikoto, he tries to attack Sumeragi, but he is unable to land a blow. He figures that he is not a normal ogre. Sally activates her powers and breaks free from Juki's grasp. She is in control this time. Juki reveals that Sally is powered by peace and is ominous for all ogres. He tries to demotivate her, but Winnie tells her not to give in to his words. Sumeragi proposes peace between ogres and humans to Mikoto, and he surprisingly agrees to his suggestion after hearing something about Sally. Back to the forest, Sally uses her powers to knock out Milia, and Juki taunts her about enjoying the violence. He proceeds to attack Milia, but Sally protects her and kills Juki after that. Everyone celebrates. Hawthorne chills with the lizard folk and the elf at Winnie's place, and everyone is in good spirits for now. Sally decides not to learn magic because she realizes that ogres will follow her everywhere she goes, and she doesn't want to endanger Winnie and the others. The team joins her on her quest, although Barrett decides to stay back with Winnie. The series ends with them bidding farewell. The episode that follows this is the one with Kyuketsuki. And there you go guys, that was Peach Boy Riverside recapped and explained by yours truly. I hope it was easy to follow. Let me know in the comments if you have any doubts regarding the continuity. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to watch some more interesting manga series. Okay then, I'll see you in the next video. Sayonara!